All right, we just got wrapped up officially with Brad Holmes' pre-draft press conference, which is always a highlight every single year because you get more insight to just how he feels about position groups, draft strategy. Not that the draft strategy changes much. We know what Brad Holmes does every single year. He's going to draft the best players available, but it's so interesting to get to hear from him, his opinion, especially on different position groups. That was probably my favorite part of the press conference, hearing his thoughts on wide receivers, the edge class, and then he gave an update regarding Zadarius Smith. Big shout out to John Macaroon for that question as well, giving the people what they want. But I have some clips. I have a clip of him talking about Zadarius. I have a clip talking about whether or not he's received calls about potentially trading back, someone trading up to 28. And then I have comments regarding the wide receiver class because that's a big storyline, especially they've met with Matthew Golden. So first, let's start with his response to Zadarius Smith. And this is John Macaroon asking the question, but let's take a listen, and then I'll share my thoughts on this.
Zadarius Smith recently at the Pistons game. Just wondering, since the annual meeting, have you had any more conversations with his agent or the player?
No, we haven't had any discussions since then. And, I think we kind of left it as, that, his agent would kind of let us know if something was, going on or, if anything's had changed or if we had any updates. So, but no, we haven't had any discussions since the annual meetings.
All right. So there's that update regarding Zadarius Smith. Again, do I still believe there's maybe a chance in the future that he will come back to Detroit? Of course. But the fact that they haven't had any conversations, what that tells me is Brad is where he's at with it, right? Either the contract he's offered is he's staying put. He's standing on business, which I don't really hate, to be honest with you. I'm sure Brad would like to have him back, but he's not going to break off what they offer to how they feel about the situation. And then there's Zadarius Smith and his agent, which I'm sure the dispute is probably the number in which Zadarius was offered. But let's be honest here. As much as I love Zadarius Smith, I don't know exactly what the number. I don't exactly know the number that was offered, but I would assume that it's relatively fair. So either A, Brad is lowballing Zadarius, or B, Zadarius wants too much money. And I'd probably lean B. Zadarius wants too much money, which, again, at that point, there's really nothing you can do. Or maybe it's the length of the contract. Maybe it's more than just a one-year deal. Maybe Zadarius wants 2-3 years on a deal, which is just unrealistic. So, again, I'm not going to sit here and complain like Brad's doing something wrong because, again, we don't have all the details, but they haven't talked since the annual meetings, which tells me, again, that Brad, he's firm with what he offered and how he feels about the situation. So my confidence level with Zadarius coming back has lowered, but it's not at a 0%. I will say that. There is a little glimpse, maybe just a little flash of hope for me that he returns, but it would have to be Zadarius either coming down in price or maybe coming down in years. One of the two. It's just my opinion, but there's the response. I also have his response regarding if any teams have offered to trade up to that 28th overall pick. So let's take a listen to Brad's response regarding that and potentially trading back.
And, who might be in striking range, who might, so it could be moving back. It could just be, just staying patient. It could be, didn't think that this guy, didn't go up. So, you be prepared for everything. So you go through all those scenarios and then you just kind of got to be ready for anything. Just depends.
Yeah. So that, again, for Brad, he talked about it in the press conference. He's comfortable moving up. He's comfortable moving back. It just really depends on what players are there. I've already stated on our show that I'm starting to lean to the possibility that he does trade back. I think that's probably more likely than people think. We all know Brad Holmes. He typically, when he likes a player, he goes up and gets them. But we have to start really considering the fact that this draft is different. Every draft is different. And we don't know Brad's board. We don't know how Brad values this draft. And maybe he feels that, hey, if we trade back to the 30s and we get capital, then maybe we could still get our guy and get more assets. And it was a great question because, in some of these questions, people ask really good questions when it comes to, hey, is it quality over quantity, or is it quantity over quality, or is it both? Would you rather have more picks? And Brad already stated, hey, if we can have more picks but still pick up guys that we really like, that's okay too. It just depends on who's there. So my feeling, my opinion, I think this draft, especially at 28, around 28, there's going to be a group of players that are in a similar pool. So I think the likelihood that Brad feels comfortable trading back is pretty high. So it just depends, really, who falls. And I know that's probably not a great answer, but it's just the truth. Who falls, who's there, and how does Brad feel about those pool of players that are there? Because when you look at the edges at 28, unless you're trading up and getting a really good player or a player falls to 28 that Brad really likes, there's going to be a group of edge rushers and offensive linemen that are kind of in the same pool. I mean, look at offensive line guys, Gray Zabel, Tyler Booker, Donovan Jackson. I mean, there's just a group of guys that are kind of in the same tier of players. Same with defensive tackle, same with defensive end. They're all kind of in the same pool. Unless a really good player falls, maybe Kenneth Grant falls for whatever reason, I doubt it. Then you can really say, okay, well, we're taking the guy that we think's the best player. But I think, although both may be on the table, I would still at this point, and comment down below what you think of this. Maybe you disagree, but I think it's more likely they trade back, honestly. I get this feeling that, hey, if you could pick up assets and still get, maybe one of those offensive linemen I named, or get, a Nick Scorton, go get another edge rusher that you really still like, and you get capital, what's wrong with that? And you save a little bit of money. I'm cool with that. Although you want to have the fifth-year option, you still save some money there. So let's get to this too. I have this graphic, and it's Brad talking about the wide receiver position, because this is interesting, very, very interesting to what Brad said in the press conference. And he said, you really can't ever have enough of them when referring to the wide receiver position. But here's also the important part of what he said, because it's not on this graphic. But he said in the press conference that he believes wide receiver is a position that you can really pick up. It's a volume position in terms of talent in the draft, which I agree with 100%. And this is why I've been so against Matthew Golden at 28. And it has nothing to do with Matthew Golden, but it has everything to do with just the history of the NFL draft and why talent, especially at wide receiver in an offensive league, the way it's trending, you can find guys really everywhere. And I'm not saying that everyone will be a hit, but the likelihood of finding high-level talent increases, and you can find them in all the rounds. I mean, Puka Nacua, go look up where he was drafted. Amon-Ra St. Brown, 4th-round pick. Although Jamison Williams was drafted, they traded up for him. He's a special talent. But just adding quality depth and getting younger at wide receiver is a priority for the Lions, and that's why I still believe that they won't take one at 28, but they will take one at some point in the draft, maybe looking for a Tim Patrick replacement. He's only under contract for one more year. So finding a bigger body receiver that can come in younger, and just in case there is an injury, you still have depth there, younger depth at that position. Hey, what's going on there? It's Jeff Iafrate. Appreciate you for finishing the video. You can check out one of the videos here suggested, or show support by commenting, liking, and subscribing. And buy your merchandise, officialctsports.com.